After months of White House denials about the Trump campaign's contact with the Russian government, on July 11th, the bombshells dropped.
Today, Donald Trump Jr. released an exchange of emails in which he accepts what's purported to be an offer of help from the Russian government.
Whenever one of these gigantic stories comes out, all eyes turn to the Brady Room. The briefing becomes must-see television. The networks stand by, ready to go live. Reporters craft their questions and take their seats. This is what you tune in for. And Tuesday, July 11th, it was one of those days. So cut to 2 p.m. and the cameras turn off. Nobody could watch the press briefing that day, or really most days at this point. In previous administrations, pretty much on every weekday, you could find the briefing broadcast somewhere on television. Now, under President Trump, they've moved it largely off camera. But look around. That room is littered with cameras and phones. So the question is, why doesn't someone just turn their camera on? Even before they came into the White House, the Trump administration promised changes to the briefing.
There will still be reporters every day going to work in the White House.
That hasn't been determined, Chuck.
And those changes have come. The briefings are shorter than they used to be. That is, if they're even held at all. Press secretaries often call on Trump-friendly reporters. And of course, the briefings are held increasingly off camera. Since June 1st, the White House has banned cameras more than they've allowed them.
During the opening months of this administration, with this Russian investigation hanging over it, the White House wants to turn off the cameras.
Now, here's the White House's stated rationale for limiting cameras.
Yeah, some days we'll have them, some days we won't. The president's going to speak today in the Rose Garden. I want the president's voice to carry the day.
So if the president speaks, then the White House says they don't need to have an on-camera briefing that day. So looking at the president's schedule on July 11th, no public events listed. So clearly, their stated rationale is bogus. How exactly do these rules get set? Well, transactional arrangements are made by journalists and sources all the time. Think of an off-the-record conversation. That isn't something that can just be declared unilaterally. Both sides, the reporter and the source, need to agree to it.
I think a lot of people don't understand that on-the-record and off-the-record rules and rules about whether briefings are televised are not something that can be ordered from on high by the White House with the force of law. The White House cannot dictate it. It's an agreement negotiated between media outlets and the White House.
The White House Correspondents Association represents the journalists covering the president, and that group has lobbied the Trump administration for more access.
It's a sometimes slow and sometimes unsatisfactory process, but we're working hard on it.
But let's be clear, this isn't much of a negotiation. The White House has the final say.
As the saying goes, they have the furniture here. They are in the White House. They can set these ground rules, and it's very difficult. It's easier said than done for somebody to just sort of defy these restrictions and go rogue.
But to some outside critics, the press corps has been too deferential.
In the larger question of negotiating access, the White House press corps constantly allows itself to be rolled by White Houses. They refuse to acknowledge the amount of power they have in the negotiations.
So let's just backtrack for a second here. Let's say a reporter burns a source and prints a quote that both sides agreed was off the record. That source probably isn't going to talk to that reporter again, right? And that's because the reporter would have broken the agreement. The same principle's at play here. By entering the briefing room, the reporters are accepting the White House's terms, no matter how strict or unreasonable they may seem.
The problem is that once I sit down in that briefing room, I am essentially saying to everybody, I too am abiding by these restrictions. I'm going to play along with these rules. To go in there and suddenly go rogue, I think requires a larger conversation.
CNN's Jim Acosta has been one of the most vocal opponents of the camera ban.
Why not turn the cameras on, Sean? They're in the room, the lights are on.
Acosta has railed against the White House on this. He mocked the camera ban by tweeting out a picture from inside the briefing room of his socks.
That's right, I think those are from J. Crew, those anchor socks.
They're very nice socks right there.
Good-looking socks.
And yet, more than a few have urged him to go even further. I mean, if he can use his phone to take a picture of his socks, why not use it to stream the briefing?
If you think that they should defy the rules, it's not just reporters themselves you should be annoyed with. It really is the people who negotiated these agreements at a much higher level. It's made by their bosses, it's made by producers, and it's made by network heads. It's made by the people who run these very large media corporations.
Frank Sesno used to be one of those people. He was CNN's DC bureau chief in the early 2000s. So when you were bureau chief of CNN, you would have been in a position to make a call like this.
Yes, correct.
What incentive is there to following these restrictions?
Well, you're not there to make friends, but you have to have a set of rules by which you operate. You know, you're not friends with the opposing team when you hit the field, but you recognize what the refs are all about, and you understand when the flag goes down, you got to do what you got to do. I would be advocating maybe even to break the rules, however, if there were a significant briefing at a significant time and the White House said we refuse to allow cameras. Now, at the end of the day, by the way, there's probably not much you can do about that because they're going to know that a camera is on in the briefing room. And somebody's just going to say from the podium, I'm not going to start as long as the camera's there. The press room is very small, very cramped, and they own that space. So they've got a lot of influence.
Let's take this hypothetical and run with it. What if the White House continues to chip away at access until someone, be it a reporter or a network, decides to go rogue, broadcast the briefing against the wishes of the White House? What happens then?
Well, I think we may get to a point where that's going to have to happen.
I think first of all, it'd be great ratings. That would be my number one message to CNN is it would be great ratings.
My sense of it is that the press secretary or the deputy press secretary would turn around and walk out of the room, and there would be some pretty tense phone calls between the White House and the bureau chiefs. There may even be a reaction where the White House decides they're going to cancel the press briefings.
Unilaterally declare no more press briefing. To that, I say, how bad of an outcome is that really when reporters are constantly complaining that the briefings have become completely useless and uninformative?
So whether the pressure comes from the public, whether an individual journalist goes rogue, or a network head just decides to take a stand, there will be another day that brings a major development or a scandal. And the question is, when that day comes, will the cameras at the White House be rolling?